Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We are going to allow just a couple of minutes here to let everyone join. I see that the attendees list is growing rapidly, so that's great. So if you'll just give us a few minutes and then we will get started. Thank you. Again, if you are just joining us, we're going to give it just another minute or two to allow attendees to join, and then we will get started with the presentation. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today, Wednesday, October 4th, for the Information Technology Staff Augmentation Contract ITSAC Services. This is the Vendor Pre-Solicitation Conference. We would just like to go over some housekeeping notes for you. So you can change your audio by switching between computer audio and phone call. All attendees are muted. And then if you wouldn't mind, if you'll click the raise hand icon, just so I can make sure you can hear me and that the presentation is showing up for you. Perfect. I'm seeing a lot of hands go up. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you can go ahead and lower those. And then if you can submit any questions you have through the Q&A function, which you'll be able to find in your Zoom controls and the meeting controls. The chat is disabled for this presentation. And then the handout will be made available in the addendums after the presentation. Just to quickly go over an introduction of the speakers, Alexis Jimerson is the procurement lead. Vanya Rainmaker is also a procurement lead. Marie Cohan is the statewide digital accessibility program manager, and Teresa Williamson is the hub program manager. They will be the ones speaking for this solicitation today. And I'll turn it over to Alexis.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the pre-proposal meeting for ITSAC services. On our agenda today, we will go over the RFO. We'll have digital accessibility, RFO contents. We'll go over the RFO scope, evaluation criteria, term of contracts, the schedule, and hub information. There will be an overview of general information, a bid stamp vendor information system portal overview. We will discuss the not to exceed rates, mandatory submissions. We will have a break and then questions and conference closing afterwards. Next slide. RFO overview. The objective of this request for offer is to solicit responses from potential respondents to provide information staffing to eligible DIR customers acting by and through the Department of Information Resources. This will serve as a re-solicitation of RFO DIR CPO-TMP-579. That is the solicitation that our current ITSAC contracts were awarded under. DIR may make multiple awards from this RFO. Next slide. This is an overview of our historical sales through the Cooperative Contracts Program. The ITSAC is part of the Cooperative Contracts Program for DIR, and also an overview of the services sales by volume for the DIR fiscal years. Next slide. We are going to have digital accessibility requirements and forms reviewed by Maria Cohan. She has to go a little later in our presentation, so we're letting her talk first. Marie.
Thank you, Alexis. I appreciate that. Hello, I'm Marie Cohan. I'm the Statewide Digital Accessibility Program Administrator, and I'm going to go through the different accessibility documents that are in your solicitation packet. Next slide, please. So a little bit about digital accessibility. This is the inclusive practice of designing and building technology that removes barriers for people with disabilities. We want to make sure that all of our technology offerings in the state of Texas are inclusive. You may hear the term electronic and information resources, or EIR, or information and communications technology, or ICT, and they are interchangeable within the digital accessibility field. We also have Texas Government Code 2054, that subchapter M, that supports accessibility in Texas with regard to digital accessibility. And DIR has authority to create rules under that statute. And so we have created 2 rules, Texas Administrative Code TAC 206 for websites and TAC 213 for all electronic and information resources. So think software, hardware, and pretty much everything else. And we also follow industry best practices. So we do follow the World Wide Web Consortium WCAG 2.0 AA technical standard. That is the baseline standard for the state of Texas, but our customers may adopt a higher standard. So you may end up doing business with a state of Texas agency or institution of higher education that will only accept WCAG 2.1 AA. So just be aware of that. And we can request additional accessibility documentation at any time, and our customers have the authority to request new or updated documentation in the future when they purchase off of these contracts. Next slide, please. So there are 3 different templates within your packet. Not all of these are going to apply, but I'm going to still go through them very quickly, and I'll go through the ones that don't really apply very fast and spend a little bit more time on the others. So we have the policy-driven adoption for accessibility. It's a vendor self-assessment. We have a vendor accessibility development services information request, which is typically for development services. And then we have the accessibility conformance report, which is for product offerings. Next slide, please. So the PDAA is the self-assessment. This is a required document. It is mandatory. If it is missing, it will impact your pass-fail part of your scoring. This is a spreadsheet that is in your packet. It is questions around how your organization has adopted accessibility. It's to help us determine where you are in your accessibility maturity. And this can also be used for you as a roadmap in getting closer to a mature accessibility model within your organization. This document is independent of your service or product offerings. In this case, you guys are offering staffing resources. This document is specifically about your company, your organization, and it is mandatory. Next slide, please. This is the PDAA maturity matrix. This is also on our website. And you can see here that it has 3 different stages: a launch stage, an integrate stage, and an optimal stage. And you'll find that the scoring on the PDAA ties with these different levels of maturity. Next slide, please. So the vendor accessibility development services information request is typically for any type of development services. So really, this is not a required form for this particular type of solicitation. However, in the ITSAC contract, there is a possibility that you will be providing service resources to agencies for development services or for website design. I would strongly recommend that you complete this form to help DIR understand how your staffing resources are trained in digital accessibility. Do they understand how to test their development product? Do they understand how to track the defects? What type of tools do they use? Do they test with assistive technology? These are some of the questions that are on this VADSER. So if you know that you're going to be eventually providing some sort of development resources for the state of Texas, I strongly encourage you to complete this form. Next slide, please. This is just a sample of the VADSER form. It'll just collect a little bit of information about your organization. Next slide, please. And then it has those questions that I mentioned earlier. So is your staff trained on digital accessibility practices? What type of training have they attended? What kind of testing tools do you use within your organization? What is your corrective action process? What type of alternative methods can you provide if there is some sort of issue? And then if you do have examples of what your developers have created, you can put that in there, but in this case, that might be challenging to do. But this will help DIR understand how well trained your developers are, or anyone along those lines. And then we can also have this document for our customers. Next slide, please. The accessibility conformance report is a report based off of the VPAT, vendor accessibility product accessibility template, voluntary product accessibility template. Once that is completed through testing your product, you'll put on this form how your product conformed to WCAG standards. This is not really pertaining to this particular solicitation, but in the event that there is some additional add-on procurement for a product down the road, you will be required to provide an ACR. Next slide, please. And this is just the areas of the WCAG, so I'm going to skip through here. Next slide. And this is demonstrating the different levels of conformance. So next slide. And here are some resources for you. So you can locate the VPAT template online. We accept version 2.3 or higher. We have some resources on our website, general resources around accessibility. And then we also now offer training for our vendors. If you are interested in attending training, please email me at statewide@dir.texas.gov. There is no cost for this training. There are 4 courses. Each course is about an hour long. The one course is just general digital accessibility training. The other 3 courses are around the Texas rules, the statute, and procurement requirements regarding digital accessibility in Texas. Next slide, please. And this is my email address. If you do reach out to me, I ask you to please also copy Alexis on those emails. If you reach out to me for some reason without copying Alexis, I will respond and include her. And typically, the only time you'll contact me is to request training for your company or to ask an additional question. That is all I have. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Alexis, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Marie. Next up, we will do our RFO contents. And this where we'll go over the contents of our RFO. In this RFO, there will be an Exhibit A, which is your respondent information form, Exhibits 1A, which is the exceptions form, Exhibit B, respondent history and experience, Exhibit C, contract marketing and support plan, Exhibit D, the hub subcontracting plan or SHP sample form, and Exhibit E are reference forms. These reference forms are for the vendor, your vendor references. Next slide. We will have Exhibit F, respondent release of liability, Exhibit G, the Edgar certification form, Exhibit H, policy-driven adoption for accessibility or PDAA, which Marie has just gone over, Exhibit I, the accessibility conformance report, also part of what Marie just went over, Exhibit J, the vendor accessibility development services information request, which is going to be the VATSR, which was the last thing that Marie went over. Next slide. Okay. Exhibits A, 1A, and B. The thing to note about Exhibit A, it's the respondent information form. It must be filled out and signed in its entirety. Complete with your canceled contract references if applicable. Exhibit 1A is where we want you to document exceptions. This is where you will indicate whether or not you have any exceptions and fill out this form. If we do not have any exceptions, we ask that you explicitly state that you take no exceptions and send that to us as well. Exhibit B, your respondent history and experience. You must provide a detailed response to each question detailing your history and experience in providing the services proposed. In this case, that means please provide us a detailed history of your experience providing IT staffing resources. Next slide. Exhibit C, the contract marketing customer support plan. This plan describes the respondent's ability to and strategy for promoting and supporting the contract if awarded. Exhibit D is your HSP. We do not want the sample form back. We want your filled out HSP form. The instructions for which are included in section 3.4.1 under the Hub subcontracting plan header. Please download the latest form using the link provided in that section of the RFO. Vendor references. Each respondent must send the Exhibit E reference form to a minimum of 3 companies or government agencies. The references must respond to DIR on the form provided by the due date to be considered for evaluation. The respondent may not submit this on the reference form to DIR on their own behalf. It has to come to us from your reference. Next slide. Exhibit I, the VPAT, and Exhibit J, the VADSER. Marie just went over these. Please fill them out where applicable. Next slide. RFO scope. DIR intends to contract with successful respondents to provide, that should say, information technology staffing services. Respondents may submit for services in the following areas, but not limited to: IT staffing to be provided on an as-needed basis to DIR customers when the customers submit and or distribute solicitations for the ITSAC service through our cooperative contract program. The successful respondent is responsible for
Apologies, I think we're muted for a moment. I think everyone probably got the emergency alert test, so I think we will start back up here in just a second. Alexis, are you there?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start from the top and say that this is for information technology staffing services, and respondents may submit for services for IT staffing services and related products. These services will be provided on an as-needed basis to DIR customers when they submit and/or distribute solicitations for IDSAC services through the DIR IDSAC Cooperative Contract Program. The respondents will be responsible for reviewing each type of solicitation and providing compliant responses to the DIR customer. It is the respondent's responsibility to ensure that the products and services proposed are within the scope of this RFO. Next slide. Services will be provided, as I said, on an as-needed basis. There are two types of solicitations allowable under this contract, a statement of work solicitation and a request for resumes solicitation. Each one of these solicitations will be distributed by the DIR customer either via our portal or via direct communication, and the successful respondent will be responding to the requirements within those documents. Next slide. Going over the statements of work. The DIR customers will issue the statements of work. The successful respondent shall review the response requirements and, if interested, submit compliant responses. Please note that DIR customer SOWs may include additional terms and conditions associated with the specific project that they're soliciting for. The successful respondent will be held accountable for all additional customer terms and conditions to which the successful respondent agrees as part of the solicitation process. Next slide. Requests for resumes. DIR customers will issue requests for resumes which include duration of services, description of services to be performed, its that category, title, and level of workers who will perform the services, any additional customer requirements, and contract holder response requirements. So please pay attention to the customer may have additional response requirements, and you will have to meet those to be responsive to those customers. Next slide. The request for resumes continued. Successful respondent shall review the response required and, if interested, submit compliant responses for which you have received the request. We do not want to send resumes out to unsolicited requests. So we're responding to DIR customers' requests. Once you have responded successfully to the DIR customer's request, the customer will issue a purchase order to the DIR contract holder for the personnel selected to fill the solicitation. Next slide. Okay. Section 2.1.1.3 goes over hourly rates. These rates can be found in attachment 5, labeled IDSAC not to exceed rates. This attachment states the maximum rates acceptable under this solicitation. Respondents must agree to provide all services under the resulting contract for these rates or less. The successful respondent will provide hourly billing rates in response to requests for services during the term of this contract. Hourly rates quoted in response for a request for service shall remain valid for the period specified in the purchase order, including any amendments or POCNs, unless otherwise agreed to with the DIR customer. Next slide. Successful respondents shall not hire employees of a DIR customer or offer such employees as workers for a solicitation on which that employee is currently participating. Successful respondent shall not solicit directly or indirectly any employee of DIR who is associated with this contract. DIR and its customers agree not to solicit employees of the selective respondent during the term of the PO or for a period of 90 calendar days thereafter. Next slide. Section 2.1.3.1 is related services. This applies to any related service that are value-added services the respondent may perform as related to IT staffing services proposed in section 2.1.1a. Related services include but are not limited to product installation, integration, maintenance and support, managed services, and product training. Next slide. Evaluation criteria. Next slide. The following items are pass-fail, and that is administrative review. Exhibit A must be completed and signed. You must have completed your PDAA self-assessment, the ACRs and VATSR when applicable, and your hub subcontracting plan completed and signed. Financial review. A respondent must provide an accurate DUNS number online. Item 3 of Exhibit A in the respondent information. Respondent's financial stability as reported by Dun & Bradstreet is reviewed. Please note that your Dun & Bradstreet corporate address needs to match the address on Exhibit A. Item 6, principal place of business. We're going to add another note. Please make sure that all of your addresses match on all of your reported documents. When those things don't match, it causes a delay and hold up in evaluation for us. Next slide. Evaluation of responses. Incomplete response packages will be rejected. Financial review and HSP review are on a pass-fail basis, as previously announced. Failure to provide a DUNS number may result in your response being disqualified. Only responses that receive the passing grade will proceed to the next evaluation phase. The weighted evaluation criteria for this RFO is 60% history and experience, 40% contract marketing, and customer support plan. Next slide. Next slide. We'll go over the term of the contract. DIR anticipates that the initial term of the contract will be up to 2 years with one optional 2-year renewal and one optional 1-year renewal for a total of 5 years if we exercise all renewals. These renewals will be exercised by DIR at its discretion. Section 2.7 covers that the option to extend, and successful respondents agree that DIR may require continued performance beyond the initial or any renewal term contract of any within described services at the rate specified in the contract. Next slide. Next, we'll go over the RFO schedule. As you see here, the solicitation was posted 9/28/23. We are at October 4th, where we're now having what is the pre-proposal conference. The deadline for submitting RFO questions is 10/18 at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. The deadline for your response to be submitted into BidStamp or into the vendor information system is November 27th at 2 p.m. The deadline for our DIR to receive your respondent references is the same as the deadline for you to submit your response, November 27th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. After that time, we will conduct administrative review, evaluations, and clarifications if needed, and negotiations and awards will take place from December 11th until complete. Next slide. Next, we have Hub subcontracting plan and Teresa will go over that with you.
Thank you, Alexis. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Teresa Williamson. I'm the Hub Program Manager. Let's talk about the importance of submitting a completed and signed Hub subcontracting plan. Next slide. Okay. So a link here and a sample document have been provided for you of the most current Hub subcontracting plan or your HSP. All respondents, Hub and non-Hub, are required to submit a properly completed and signed HSP with your bid submission. Next slide. Again, all respondents, Hub and non-Hub, are required to submit a completed and signed Hub subcontracting plan. Failure to submit a completed, signed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass or fail document. We're going to talk about the 3 ways to complete an HSP. The first is method A, where you're meeting or exceeding the Hub goal. The second is method B, where you're not meeting the Hub goal and you're completing that good faith effort outreach. And the third is self-performing. Next slide. The Hub goal for the solicitation is 26%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the 26% Hub goal, you'll complete method A. Be sure to identify all Hub and non-Hub vendors that you will be subcontracting with, include the anticipated dollar amounts and expected percentage of contract. So for completing method A, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4, and method A, attachment A. Next slide. If you are going to be subcontracting below the Hub goal, you will complete method B. Be sure to solicit a minimum of 3 Hub certified vendors and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow them 7 working days to respond to you prior to the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach to these entities with your Hub submission. Please remember that the day that you send out your notifications does not count. That is considered day 0. So when completing method B, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4, and method B, attachment B. Make sure to complete all the required fields, including those approximate dollar amounts and expected percentages, but also please allow yourself plenty of time to complete that good faith effort. Next slide. And last is if you will be self-performing, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. In your self-performing justification, you identify how your company will fulfill a contract with its own staff, equipment, and resources. Please do not say that you'll subcontract in the future if you need to. Please just tell us how you plan to self-perform. Next slide. My information is listed here. I will do a precursory or complimentary review of your completed HSP. I will give you feedback to be successful when completing your Hub subcontracting plan. Please take us up on this offer I've seen many companies not take me up on these courtesy reviews, and they fail because they don't ask questions. Please ask questions. We're here to assist you with the Hub subcontracting plan. Also, make sure that you allow yourself that time to make any corrections after those reviews to be able to complete a Method B good faith effort if needed. I want to reiterate the importance of the HSP. It is a pass or fail document, and we're here to assist you. So if you need assistance, if you want us to take a look at that document for you with your Hub questions or your Hub subcontracting plan, please reach out to us. Please copy Alexis with those emails, and we'll respond back to you and give you some feedback. So we want you to be successful, so please take us up on those courtesy reviews. Next slide. Back over to Alexis.
All right. We're going to go over some general information. Next slide. When asking questions or submitting questions, please reference the RFO page number and section number so that we can thoroughly understand what your question is about. Webinar participants may submit questions electronically at any time during the webinar. Please use the Q&A tab to do so. Questions answered today are unofficial until posted on the ESBD in the form of an addendum. Please check the ESBD often for updates. All questions regarding this RFO must be submitted in writing through the Bidstamp Vendor Information System portal by October 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Next slide. General information, continued disqualification of offers, failure to sign your respondent information form or Exhibit A, failure to complete financial information, i.e. your DUNS number, failure to complete and sign your HSP or Hub subcontracting plan, failure to complete and submit your Exhibit H, your policy-driven adoption for accessibility, failure to submit on or before the due date and time, and contact with other DIR employees regarding this RFO other than the designated contacts. Failure to submit on time or on or before the due date in the Bidstamp system or vendor information system. Please remember to hit submit when you submit your response. If you do not hit submit, we won't get it. And delivery of offers. Any vendor responding to this RFO must submit their response through Bidstamp VIS. Next slide. Respondents and all respondents' representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with any employees or representatives of DIR other than designated contacts. Failure to observe this restriction may result in disqualification of any related response. Next slide. Here are the general contacts for this RFO. Of course, there is myself, Alexis Jemerson. My email address is listed here. Contacts for the vendor information system is Stephanie Harrison, and her email is listed there. And Teresa just spoke with everyone for Hub subcontracting plan, and her information is listed here. Teresa, do you want them to send it to the dir.hub address, right, for inquiries?
Yes, please.
That is the preferred address, guys. Next slide. Okay, we are now going to go over the vendor information systems VIS portal Bidstamp. Vanya is going to be presenting this part for us.
Hello, everybody.
There's
Good
Vanya.
afternoon. My name is Vanya Raymakers, and I am going to present this section for our director, Stephanie Harrison. Also, if you have questions about this, if Stephanie is not available, you're welcome to also contact me, as I am part of this RFO contact staff. Next slide, please. All right, before we move on, I want to make sure everyone in this call understand this is an overview. This is not a Bitstamp training. So I'm gonna go over specific sections of the system that is important to you. However, it is your responsibility to download the Bitstamp manual, technical guide that is on our website. Also, take out and watch the video on the outreach and trainings. Over here, there's a link. And the reason for that is because the system has a lot more to it than what I am able to tell you in 20 minutes or whatever time I have today. But I'm gonna try to cover the basics. And I just wanna make sure that you understand this is an overview. So there's no way I'm gonna cover the whole system, okay? So the first thing you need to know is that you must respond to the VIS system. There is no other system, okay? So, and there is no binders. It's all electronic, all through the system, 100%. You know, before you can access the Bitstamp portal, you must have an access code. So if you haven't get your login credentials by now, you need to get it right away as soon as possible. Keep in mind that 2 days before the bid is opening to get set up on an account is nearly impossible. DIR does manage to do the impossible. We prefer not to. So let's get our accounts credentials soon. Let's get them set up and let's test them. So this is my next thing I want to make sure you know. If you have an old Bitstamp account that you responded to an RFO way back when, it is critical that you log in and check your link, check your account, make sure you are active, make sure that that's still working. You cannot say, I have a Bitstamp account, and the day before the bid is due, you figure it out. Oops, I'm on the wrong link, because as you can see, there's a new link over here. We moved some of our systems to a different, it's called the DIR community. So make sure that your Bitstamp account is active, and make sure it's active now, please. If a vendor does not yet have the credentials, later on, I'm gonna show you how to get one and where the buttons are located and what page for you to be able to do that. As I spoke to you before, there is a video that you can listen to that will help you set up your Bitstamp account. And also there's a technical guide to help you with the system as well. Next slide. Now, just in case there is anybody with disability, please submit in writing a request under section 3.1 of the solicitation. It gives you information. Please allow at least 5 business days for response. If you have disabilities and you need accommodation to respond to this RFO, you need to take care of that right away and make sure that you give us 5 business days, okay? Next slide. All right, so how do you navigate to Bitstamp as a vendor? You're gonna go to the DIR webpage, dir.texas.state.gov. You should have that already marked. You go there and you go to selling through DIR. You must scroll down the webpage further. Next slide. Keep scrolling. Now you're gonna see this. And you're gonna go schedule of solicitations. You're gonna click there and you're gonna keep scrolling down. And then you're gonna get to this section of that page, okay? What's important about this page? You get an online solicitation portal. You're gonna click on that to get to the screen where you sign in. Next, okay, stay there for a minute. Previous. Okay, thank you. So here is the technical guide I told you about. Download that, read it, mark it, highlight it, be familiar with the system so that when you're responding to this RFO, you will not have a lot of issues. There's also a button here to request credentials for the bid stamp access. Either one of those will take you to the next page. Scrolling down, you will see this. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. So when you click on those two buttons, one or the other, you're going to get to this screen. Once you're on this screen over here, you're either going to log in if you have an account. And if you have an old account, you are going to make sure that account is valid, it's working. You're going to make sure your link is correct. You're going to make sure all of this is in place before anything else. Because without this, there is no responding to this RFO. And you know, I like to tell my vendor this all the time, DIR does the impossible. That's why we are as good as we are. But we prefer not to. We like to do things on a timely basis. We like to help you guys a lot. But there is a portion of this that is your responsibility, okay? And one of those responsibilities before you respond to an RFO is to make sure everything is active, that everything is, don't take nothing for granted. Always double check, okay? Next slide. So here's what you're gonna get. Once you log in, you're gonna come to this screen, okay? And you will see these buttons. So you're gonna go under open solicitation. That's your next. All right, so now here it is. You're gonna open the solicitation page. Next slide. And here you're gonna see a bunch of solicitations that are currently open for DIR. You're gonna highlight 579. So if we're on the 200s, you're gonna have to go down a lot to get to 579. But find DIR CPO-TMP-579, highlight it. Next slide, and click on it. Don't forget to click. You will come to this screen for 579. Now up here, I want you to pay attention to these small buttons: respond to solicitation, ask a question, subscribe to solicitation. So this solicitation subscribe here, I want to make sure that you push that button, because every time we issue an addendum, a notice will go out to you. If you subscribe. If you don't, you are not going to get that notice. But again, DIR tries to help you. We'll send out a notice that says, hey, check out the ESBD. We just posted an addendum, right? Still your responsibility to go to the ESBD and download those documents. DIR does not provide documents through our vendor system. Vendors must go to the official state of Texas procurement system to download documentation, whether are the original RFO or future addendums to this RFO. Keep that in mind. And then you help view solicitation documents. Not quite sure what that button does, but I'm gonna find out and let you know. The next, you're gonna see all the information. This tells you when the bid is opening, when questions and answers are due, and other information concerning this RFO. Next page. So respond to solicitation or view response. That's where you create a new response and view your progress. So if you go in today and you load up a couple forms, and then tomorrow you come in and you're gonna resume your solicitation response and you can see what you already done, you can add more to it, okay? You also can ask a question. A question will come through DIR resource and we will see it and we will add that question to the next addendum, whatever the situation is, wherever addendum is the next one. And subscribe, as I told you before, the solicitation, if you like to receive addendum notification, this is where you subscribe. Make sure that you do, because it's very difficult when vendors contact us and say, hey, I didn't get a notice. And chances are they forgot to push that button and we can't control that. Also, when it comes to solicitation notices and addendum notices, ladies and gentlemen, as vendors, it is your responsibility to maintain your contact information current. So whenever we do any announcements, we go to our system and download all the vendor information and emails. If that email is no longer good, or if the person that used to do this last year left your company, now there's somebody new, DIR cannot know that. Your entire account is yours to maintain. So if you want to be on top of things, if you want to know what's going on, you are responsible to maintain your information in our system current. Okay? Because the past, I can't do anything about the past, guys. So if I send an email and you don't get it and you come back and you say, I didn't get a notice, then I'm going to go back and say, it was sent to this email. And then you come back to me and you're going to say, oh, that person is no longer there, or that email is no longer active. And I am going to say, I'm sorry, that's all I got. So make sure that your documentation and everything in the system is current. View solicitation document. This allows you to navigate to the ESBD posting and for you to view the solicitation documents, okay? Next slide. So over here, there are a few things I want to point out to you. The first one is this delete button up here. It's kind of small. Don't push it unless you really mean it, okay? You know, it's not like file 13, because file 13, you can go back and get it. When you delete this, it's gone. There's no bringing it back. Whatever you had uploaded, whatever you had done, once you push that button, it's over. There's no way to get it back. So 100% be sure if you're going to delete a response that you know exactly what you're doing with that, okay? The next button is you can also withdraw you can go in here and actually withdraw a response. If you already submitted, you change your mind, you don't want to participate anymore, you can go in here and also withdraw that. The submit button, I want you guys to make this real big on your screen and make sure that you put a note on your computer right next to the edge where you can see it every day that says, I must push the submit button in order for my response to be sent to DIR. Okay, the submit button has to be pushed, has to be done. It will not, you know, it will not automatically, we're not going to know that you tried to respond and forgot to push the button. We will not know that, guys. We don't see anything until the system moves it to our system. Right now, the VIS system, only you guys see there. RT people can see for helping you. But we, the procurement lead, we can't see nothing until the bid closes, the solicitation closes. And then by that time, it's too late for you to push the submit button. Okay? So over here, you can ask questions. Make sure it's by the deadline, because the deadline comes October 18th. That function is no longer available. You will not see the questions. Okay? Creating a pricing form. That's something that it gets done on some RFO. I'm not quite sure that that is valid for this RFO. I have a feeling we're not having a pricing form. Alexa, correct me if I'm wrong. Vendors are not providing us with price, correct?
No, ma'am.
Right. So this is doesn't apply to you. So no worry about that button. One less thing for you to worry about. Okay. Now, response documents up here, you're going to upload your documents. And as you do that, you will see it right there where it says RFO response documents. You will see the documents that you uploaded so you can keep track of them. Okay. Now, new response documents, that's when you push the new button to upload a new document. Okay. Again, this is an overview. There's a lot to learn. I strongly recommend you download the technical guide and watch the video. Okay. The vendor reference button, I would not worry about that, because the the vendor references you guys are sending to your customers via email. So that if you want to put all your customers into the system and send them your vendor reference, I'm not quite sure. I would not do that if I was you guys, just for one reason, one only. Your email, you can control that it was sent and it got received, because you can request a read receipt. If you put it in a system, DIR is not responsible to make sure it got to the customers, okay? It's like something to help you, but don't call us and say, we want to know if this customer responded or if this customer got my reference request. We cannot do that. There's too many vendors. This is just what I call courtesy assistance. But if you do it through your email address, you will have all the records you need. Now, I like to close by telling you guys a few things that I know by experience. One of them is there are 3 things that make vendors fail when responding to an RFO. 3 very critical things. Write this down because it's not going to be anywhere in these slides, okay? Number 1 reason vendors get disqualified, okay? They don't sign the Exhibit A, or here's a good one for you. They upload an Exhibit A, but it's blank because they didn't pick up the right file when they were uploading that Exhibit A. So make sure your Exhibit A is signed and that you upload the correct signed Exhibit A, okay? Number 2 reason things go wrong. File names are too long. Our system can only hold so much. So I strongly recommend you use that right click, rename a file. Because when we put you a format that the form names are big, and we have to do that to be clear for you. But when you respond to us, once you fill out your forms and you're gonna upload it, go to your RFO document section 3.8.4. There is a file name convention that if you use it, you will never have problems uploading a document, okay? You do not need to have a name that is 80 to 100 characters long. A form only requires a very few information. It requires your company initials, the RFO number, which is 579. If you look at 3.8.4, that's what it says. And then the exhibit name, you say Exhibit A, not the whole name, just Exhibit A, you're done. Upload that. Rename your file. Exhibit B, upload that. Now, the third reason that vendors fail, excuse me, they don't push the submit button. They dream that they did it, but they didn't. So with that, next slide. I'm sorry. I'll pass it over to Alexis.
All right, Vanya, I got it. Next slide is mandatory submissions. We've said this already, but I'll go over it again. Exhibit A, respondent information form. It must be signed. Exhibit A must include your canceled contracts, if applicable. Exhibit A1, any exceptions requested or an affirmative statement, the respondent takes no exceptions. Exhibit B, your responding history and experience. Exhibit C, contract marketing and customer support plan. Exhibit D, historically underutilized business subcontracting plan or HSP. Exhibit E, your vendor reference form. Vendor references should be submitted by customers through the RFO email provided in the RFO document. Exhibit F, your respondent release of liability for reference has to be included in your response. Next slide. Exhibit G, your EDGAR certification form. Exhibit H, your policy-driven adoption for accessibility, your PDAA, is required. Exhibit I, your VPATs, and Exhibit J, your vendor accessibility development service information requests, or VADSR, when applicable, and any signed addenda to the RFO. Next slide. Please note any additional agreements may not conflict with the DIR contract, including DIR's terms and conditions. So if you upload some type of service agreement as part of your response, it cannot conflict with DIR's posted standard terms and conditions. Next slide. Section 3.9 of the RFO covers rejection of responses, and it basically states that DIR has sole discretionary authority and reserves the right to reject any and all responses received as a result of this RFO. Responses that do not comply with the mandatory submission requirements may be rejected. In addition, DIR reserves the right to accept or reject in whole or in part any responses submitted and to waive minor technicalities when in the best interest of the state. Next slide. Kyle, do we need to take a break, or can we bump into
yeah,
questions?
I think we're good to keep going. I would also say that we do have quite a few questions, so there's still plenty of time to submit questions. But yes, I think we're good to go into those if you're ready for that.
Okay, we can go into questions.
Okay, so let's see. Just start from the top here. It looks like, I believe that this question they're asking, there's a couple here. So it says Exhibit A, mandatory response content, states that there is an Exhibit E, itemized pricing. Could you please tell me where to find this?
There is no itemized pricing. There will be an administrative addendum posted to remove that from the RFO wording.
And then additionally to that question, it says also after opening the forms, they are labeled differently on the actual document than the RFO solicitation content states. Again, Exhibit E, the reference forms, Exhibit F, respondent release of liability. Please confirm that if the pricing form is needed and if the documents are correctly named. Thank you.
There will be an addendum posted to correct the file names.
Perfect. And then we had another question about the itemized pricing, as you've answered that. And then just the question asking if the recording and slides will be available when after the call.
Yes, this recording and the slides will be posted to the ESBD by addendum. And it will be available for you to view and or download the slides. Okay.
And then the next question we have, is there any value benefit for GSA award vendor, and do they need to submit the bid over eBuy for this opportunity?
These responses will be evaluated on your experience and your customer support plan. You will have to submit your response through our e-procurement system. Submitting it anywhere else, you won't have a submitted response with us.
Okay. And then we have a question asking, what does it mean by related services in Exhibit B?
Related services could be installation services. I think we went over those a little further up in the slide.
Okay.
Alexa, may I help you with that one?
Yes, Vanya.
Thank you. Related services for you guys, it might also reference if a customer requests that you do additional work than what you're supposed to be doing for them. So it'd be an additional related service. So if you're developing a website for a customer and you're a web developer, the customer might ask you to install the software for that web development. And if you're going to have a different pricing for those services, the customers need to know.
Okay. The next question is, what services are you talking about in Exhibit C? Question 9. Can you give example?
Okay, so Exhibit E.
I'm sorry, Exhibit C.
Exhibit C.
Yes.
That is the portion that's covering the customer support. We'll answer that in the addendum.
Okay. Let's see. And then I believe that this was just, there's not much to this question, so I'm assuming this was regarding pricing, but it's just asking if there was a requirement for the solicitation, and looking at the timestamp, it looks like that's when we were discussing that. And then, let's see, will the VAD SIR submission or non-submission be used in the evaluation for bid award?
The VAD-SIR is not part of the evaluation. It's not a pass or fail document, but the PDAA is.
Okay. And then it looks like we just had a second question asking that as well. Let's see, when can we request our references? Can we request that now?
I would request them as soon as possible.
Okay. And then yet another question about the VAD-SIR. Word documents, can we save it as a PDF and sign, or do we need to add signature on Word documents?
You can save it as a PDF and sign.
Okay. If you are not a hub company, what do you do with Exhibit D?
Hi, this is Teresa. All vendors, whether you're hub or non-hub, are required to fill out and complete that hub subcontracting plan. So you're still going to be touching it whether you're a hub or not.
Okay. Where and when can I download the solicitation packet?
The solicitation packet can be downloaded from the ESBD. That is texassmartbuy.com/ESBD.
Let's see. I'm not exactly sure what this question means. It says, does any needed mean short-term or long-term, as in 1 or 2 year contract versus 6 months? We need more information on that, unless you know what that's about.
Yeah. If you're talking about services as needed, the customer will tell you what the requirement is as far as how long they need the services. So we wouldn't be able to tell you that.
Alexa,
if you're talking about the,
go ahead.
Alexis, if you're talking about the term of your any awarded DIR contract, it will be awarded as 2 years with a 2-year option to renew and one-year optional renewal.
Okay. Will all approved vendors receive an invite to respond to a solicitation DIR customer?
That would be up to the customer. There is
go ahead, Vanya.
This is a cooperative contract. For the person that asked about the duration of the job, this is a cooperative contract. So you have a master contract with DIR. The customers are the one that's going to drive the actual work scope, when you come to work, where you go to work, what you're going to do. And that's all based on the process. The process of the customers requesting staffing is established. We went over it a little bit earlier, but after the contract is awarded and you have a vendor orientation, there will be time for you to learn that system. But the answer is no, not all vendors that get a contract will get solicited by our customers, because we don't control that, but we have so many of them. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Vanya. And then the next question is there a local preference for this contract?
You have to be able to do business in the state of Texas. You have to be able to meet the requirements of the solicitation, as well as the requirements of the customer that eventually solicits the staff.
Okay. Next question, we adjust our rates annually to accommodate inflation. Can the NTE rates be adjusted over the 5 years of the initial term and optional renewals? We expect inflation to continue putting upward pressure on staffing rates.
Successful respondents, awarded vendors will be bound to stick to the not to exceed rates in the DIR contract.
However, Alexa, just so the vendors know, DIR is aware of the marketplace, and I am pretty sure that if there is such an inflation, something that will affect one of our contracts, that DIR is open to reviewing what is happening to the marketplace and making adjustments. I'm not saying that we're going to do anything to change these prices, but I'm saying DIR is open to paying attention to the marketplace and taking care of our partners, our vendors with our contracts. And we do that for anything. When the market affects everything, then DIR pays attention to that.
Okay, let's see. This is a question regarding references. Is there an alternative response from the agency that is acceptable if the agencies do not want to fill out DIR's questionnaire? OAG is an example. Will never provide the form that DIR requests as a reference.
Alexa, we had this question with the software. The way to solve that problem is the customer can submit an email to the RFO email box saying that they'll prefer to be contacted verbally and to give us the information of who to contact and what the number is.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, this question asks, ITSAC, not to exceed rates and categories. Is it possible to add GIS titles such as GIS analysis, GIS coordinator to the list?
We will answer that one in the addendum, Kyle.
Thank you. And then is there a goal for hub subcontractors?
Yes, the goal for hub subcontractors is listed in the RFO in section 3.4 under the hub goal.
All right. Let's see. Vendor has submitted Exhibit G Edgar certification form at the time of submission. HSP can also be reviewed. I'm not. Oh, I think they're asking, can their VADSER be reviewed prior to submission?
Marie has said that she will with our approval. So you can submit that to me and I will get it to Marie, or you can contact Marie and CC me. But please understand that anything submitted a day or two before your response is due may not get reviewed, and you will be still responsible for submitting it on time.
Okay, and then I know this has been covered a couple of times, but they're asking regarding the vendor reference form. Do they need to send the vendor reference form to the customer via email? And then the second part of this, they say through the bid stamp portal, should the vendor submit the email IDs of those customers to whom the vendor reference form was sent?
You may send your vendor reference form to your customer via email. And we covered that we're not responsible if they don't get it, if you submit it through bid stamp.
Let's see. Are we able to request a sample completed PDAA self-assessment form in the response column, whether we need to include the number or check mark?
We will answer that via addendum.
Okay. What is the hub business category for the RFO? I'm
not sure what they're asking on that question.
Mary, if you want to submit a follow-up or an additional question later, please feel free to do that. We're not quite sure on that. If we have a current approved HSP, can we submit the same plan?
This is Teresa. If you do that, then it will not be accepted. So you need to start with a fresh document and insert all of your information. Then you can submit it for that precursory review.
Will you be providing the participating list?
Yes, a list of the participants in this meeting, as well as the slides and a link to the recording, will be provided and posted on the ESPD.
Okay. In the bid package, Exhibit 1, it asks for the Comptroller of Public Accounts respondent identification number. Is this mandatory and needed to submit the response?
We'll answer that via addenda.
Okay. Will a Form 1295 be needed with the proposal or after award?
We will answer that via addenda.
Do you have a sample for the marketing and customer support plan or training or parameters to use?
We'll answer that one via addenda.
Can the out-of-state companies providing similar services to other state governments be eligible to respond to this RFO?
The RFO is open to the public, so as long as you're able to provide or conduct business in the state of Texas, you may respond to the RFO.
Exhibit C, question 9. Can you please clarify what DIR expects as bundled services?
We will answer that via addenda.
Where can a respondent see the vendors and quantity of contracts awarded on the current solicitation and the responses to the current solicitation? How can one see the responses grouped by commodity types?
The second part of that question, I'm not sure what they're asking. If the person in question is asking where can they see a listing of current vendor awarded ITSAC vendors, they can go to the DIR's website, type in ITSAC into the search, and it will bring up all of the awarded vendors under the previous RFO.
For HSP method A, this is for suppliers that are meeting or exceeding the goal. Does this mean that this method is not applicable to a new supplier? If applicable to a new supplier, what happens if you choose method A but fall short of the 26% goal at some point during the contract?
This is Teresa. So if the method A is available to all vendors that are bidding, if you fall below the goal of 26%, you'll complete method B. You'll update your hub subcontracting form and you'll complete method B and you'll conduct the good faith effort.
And then Teresa, also, can a hub certified prime self-perform the 26% hub subcontracting goal?
Yes. Right.
Just clarify that.
No, I need to clarify that one.
Yeah.
They're saying that the goal that they're going to self-perform or subcontract themselves.
Yes, so I believe what the question's asking is if they are a hub certified prime, can they self-perform at the 26% hub goal? Okay, so if you're a hub prime and you're wanting to complete the work yourself, you'll complete self-performing. Okay. Are bidders able to submit our subcontractors' experience along with the bidder's experience?
We will answer that via addenda.
Okay. Let's see, this may be just something we need to address offline. Someone's having issues seeing the RFO and bid stamp.
Yes, it should be visible. So yeah.
No, that is because bid stamp does not provide the documents. They must go to the ESPD in order to download the documents.
If they are talking about the documents, Vanya is right. They have to go to the ESPD. If they're saying they just don't see 579 listed, that's a different issue.
Okay. Can multiple users register and access bid stamp under a single vendor?
Yes, they can have up to 5 logins per vendor.
Let's see. In the ESBD file for package 3, attachment 5, the not to exceed rates, the level of specialist does not have an NTE. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's see. Please confirm that BPAT is not a required response document if we are not proposing any products.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Are questions that are due October 18th, are they directed to Alexis or through BidStamp?
They must
Through
be
BidStamp.
submitted, yeah, through BidStamp.
Okay. Let's see. Do we need to be able to supply all job categories?
No.
Okay. Vendor references, will DIR be adding our references as received?
I'm not sure what they're asking.
Okay.
We are not going to download references as they come. The RFO email box stays there. When the RFO closes, then we will download those references and add them to your responses after the bid opening, not before.
And can we do parts of the response and save, or do we have to respond all at one time?
You can save, but you have to make sure that you submit all of your documents.
And then I believe this is the same one Teresa answered earlier. It asked, are Hub certified bidders able to self-perform and add subcontracting partners to achieve the Hub goal? So no, just answering this based off my knowledge, no, the prime vendor does not count towards the Hub goal.
Against the subcontracting.
Again, yes, against the subcontractor. Let's see, please clarify what email to use in effort to share the Hub program and receive feedback.
Okay. Teresa, you're gonna answer that one.
Yes, so it's dir.hub, HUB, at dir.texas, texas.gov.
Perfect. Will the recording for this, so just to
We answered that one.
Yes, the recording and the presentation will be provided. Let's see, is the person signing the RFO response submission the one required to have BidStamp access, or can BidStamp, account creation, maintenance, training, etc., be delegated to sales or back office staff?
The account creation and maintenance and training can be delegated. The person that signs the RFO submission just has to be the person that is contractually authorized to sign on behalf of the company.
And there are a few questions that we're skipping at this time, but they will be answered later on. Let's see, this one, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we can do a couple more and then we'll just answer the rest in addendum.
Okay, so this one asks, when does the new contract start?
We plan to start awarding contracts in 2024.
Let's see, in Exhibit B, page 1, Table 1, services and related services. Please explain on which page of the RFO document or exhibit attachment to refer so as to understand the services and related services defined so that we understand the appropriately to make a selection. That might be something you want to address later.
Yes, we're going to address that via addenda.
Okay. And then you want to just do one more?
Yes, we can do one more.
Okay, this question asks, how many incumbent vendors do you have? How do you measure vendor performance?
We have a little over 150 current vendors. And vendor performance is measured by service experience. We'll give you a more in-depth answer via addenda.
Okay, and we'll go to the next slide.
Alrighty, so just a reminder that questions asked today will be posted on the Electronic Business Daily, or ESBD, in the form of an addendum. Any changes or additional information regarding this RFO will be posted as an addendum under requisition number DIR-CPO-TMP-579 on the ESBD. Website link is provided here. It is the vendor's responsibility to monitor the ESBD websites for addenda. Next slide. Here is an overview of the solicitation schedule and due dates. Please mark your calendars for those. Next slide.
Alexa, just real quick. I just want to tell the vendors to remember that in the next 3 months between now and November, there's a lot of holidays. So plan accordingly when you respond to this RFO, okay?
Next slide. Please send all questions and inquiries to me, Alexis Jimerson, at alexis.jimerson@dir.texas.gov. To echo what Vanya said, please take a look at when the solicitation, the responses are due. Bear in mind that DIR does not work on the weekend. So if you get stuck on something on the weekend, we will answer you the next business day. So please, 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 please plan to have your responses in on time, ahead of time. Next slide. Thank you all for attending.